try this a second time. The 9/11 interview.
Mm-hmm.
Supposed to ask someone about their experience, what they can remember, what effects it had, long term, short term, etc. So,
Okay. So
take it away.
Okay. Start with
Yeah.
your dad, obviously, since he was down there. Um, Background information: your dad worked for the Mercantile Exchange. He was in one of the smaller buildings in 1993 when they bombed the garages. And it was funny because the Mercantile was the only one that's continued to trade. That's all the commodities like gold and oil.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else evacuated their buildings. They didn't evacuate right away.
Makes sense.
And then he went and rectified trades and worked till 9 o'clock that night. Um, so fast forward to 9/11. We just moved up here 2 weeks earlier from Brooklyn. Um, we used to. I had the car that day because we would drive Daddy. We would wake you guys up at 5 a.m., throw you in the car in PJs, and drive Daddy to the station because we still only had one car. So I actually had the car. So that's why you would take like a second nap kind of early. So it was probably about 8:30 in the morning. You were napping. Megan was playing downstairs. I was vacuuming because you could sleep through the dead. And I was looking at the clock saying, Regis and Kelly are going to be on a little while. It was a beautiful, beautiful fall day. We had plans to have a picnic with Kathy and Alexis later. And turned on the TV and heard the news that a plane had struck the towers. And I was like, oh my God. And at that time, they were supposing that this pilot had a heart attack. They didn't know what was going on. About 2 minutes later, the phone rang. It was your dad. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. We don't know what's going on yet. The market hasn't even opened. He goes, you know, these schmucks, they're probably going to open anyway. Like, all right, be safe, be in touch. Love you, click, hang up. Not a minute later, I see, because the cameras now were trained on the skies, because one of the towers are on fire, as the second plane comes in. Immediately tried to call Daddy back, couldn't get through to him. Couldn't get through to anybody. The phones were jammed, because everybody was calling everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear from your dad for another 3 hours. Grandma and Pop got through to call. Like, different family members were calling. And then, like, I also had Uncle Eddie down there, Aunt Mary, Uncle Amy. Most of my family works on Wall Street. Lots and lots of friends. So we're all, when you can get a phone call through, people were checking in with each other. Daddy didn't actually work in the towers. He worked in a building right off the river, thank God. I got a phone call later on from him. They were okay. They were in Jersey. They were at his friend Chris's house in Annandale. And they were heading home and to meet him at Karen and Greg's in Washingtonville. So that was kind of like the central meeting point for everybody who lived further north. Chris was going to get a couple of guys up that way and then get them home. Karen and Greg, our buddies. Greg was best friends with Daddy in college and worked down on the exchange with him, but was on vacation that week. And Karen's a cop, pregnant and a cop, and on vacation that week. Thank God, because God only knows what would have happened with that pregnancy. She would have been down there in the middle of it. I remember getting to the house, and the big goof was, because Karen is not demonstrative. I had the two of you in the back of the car, and driving down was the eeriest thing. I was paranoid, listening to the news, listening to like some AM radio station, and just looking around. It was like, I guess you realize that the world was never going to be the same. I just didn't know what was going to happen. Got to Karen's. Karen scooped me up in a huge hug, and Karen does not do that. She's the kiss friend. We pretend to kiss each other. And we sat around for a couple hours. You and Megan, well, you were in my arms. Kind of, you were getting passed around like a hot potato. Everybody just wanted to hug a baby. And Megan was out on the deck coloring and giving a juice box. And we hung around probably till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we all started going home to our own places. We did nothing but watch the news for a couple of days and call each other and check in. And I remember fighting with your dad because the market, they closed Tuesday and Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
it would be unprecedented that they'd close the third day because they don't. And your father was going to work. I was like, you can't go. And he's like, I have to. I have to have my job. If I don't go, I don't work. You know, who knows? And I didn't want him to go back to Manhattan. And ultimately, I think it impacted all of us. He saw things that he never spoke about, but he knew he wanted to get out of there after that. He also developed a case of asthma that has always concerned me. He wound up leaving the exchange about 5 years later and trying to work for himself and stuff. From his take of it, they were down there. They heard that the one plane went in. They knew the second hit, and he and Chris and a couple of the guys looked at each other and said, if there was two, God knows how many more. Let's get the out of here. We're not waiting for somebody to tell us to evacuate. And they ran out. But they were on that mall running. They got the last regular ferry back over to Hoboken. And then it was just a matter of get on any train that's going to get you north of here and figure it out from there. Daddy's never talked about it except once. He saw people jumping. He mentioned that. And I think that scarred him permanently. So that was Daddy's story. I remember follow-up, we had a blackout that following summer. It was a regular little blackout, but everybody got crazy and paranoid, and I was terrified. And Daddy was like, what are you worried about? I'm like, what am I worried about? What do you mean, what am I worried about? And that was the blackout where we sat at Tiny and Sean's. It was a couple of years later. And we cooked out and hung out. But it was that the cell service goes down and you don't hear from somebody for hours and you're thinking the worst, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it created a whole new world. I think you guys were all brought up on dystopian novels because of it. Like, there was never this kind of fiction for kids when I was growing up. You know, it was all happy stories. But the world had changed, and you guys brought up in way too much reality. Then there is Aunt Mary's story. Aunt Mary was working at One Penn Plaza, which is right by Madison Square Garden. In her little platform heels, because, you know, she had to be taller than her 5-foot self. She had to walk down 30-some-odd flights or 40-something flights of stairs.
Place at 36.
Then walked from Midtown, which is 34th and 7th, all the way downtown. She walked across the Brooklyn Bridge and back, and then going from South Brooklyn back up into Park Slope was all uphill to Farrell's, because she knew that would be where, even without making a phone call, she'd be able to connect with Uncle Amy, find a ride home, whatever the case may be, because Farrell's is Farrell's. Do I have to explain Farrell's in this interview?
It was one of those depression bars.
1933 depression bar. It's cops, it's firemen, it's civil servant workers. I think I told you the story of Daddy. My dad would go in there as a bus driver with limited money to get him through to the end of the week, and knew he had to buy groceries, and you would have had a private conversation with Eddie Mills maybe in the back room. You put $5 on the bar for your 50-cent glasses of beer, and next thing you knew there was 40 under there, or whatever it was, to get you through the week. And when your pay came in, you just did the same thing and slid it back with your beer money. And that's the kind of community it was. It's more than a bar, it's a community.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody who was off and was there, everybody was checking in with the firehouses, who was heard from, who was safe, who was missing. Aunt Mary met Uncle Amy there, and they went home from there. Uncle Amy, Vietnam vet, PTSD, worked on the floor of the exchange. He was one of the old dinosaurs. When those computers were down those first 3 days, he was indispensable, because he was the only one who knew how to do the old handwritten tickets. He went completely into nom mode and led a group of people through the tunnels, through the smoke, through everything. But they were both so decimated, and like my nieces even said, Aunt Leanie, it's raining ash from the sky, from all the papers and stuff from the Trade Center that were burning all over Brooklyn. But Aunt Mary couldn't walk for days from walking in those heels. She couldn't really take the shoes off because of a diabetic status. She was afraid of cutting up her feet. That Friday, they got in the car and they came up to us. And I have a picture of you lying on the couch with Aunt Mary, and that's all. She was just, and that was the best thing about having you kids, because that it was kind of like that hope and that innocence of, let me just lay here and snuggle with the baby for a while, you know. And you, because of your antics. But that's why Aunt Mary was coming up. She lost a job shortly after that.
Did she quit, or did...
It was downsizing. She lost the job. And then that was ultimately what pushed Uncle Amy to retire, and for them to build up here and build on their property and move up here. They needed to get out of the city. Uncle Eddie was down there, but we knew he was okay. I don't even remember his backstory. And then I lost two guys who were really close to the neighborhood and to me. Peter Vega I used to date. He was one of Uncle Eddie's best friends. He left an 18-month-old baby behind, Ruby. Daddy was really good about that one. He was on the front page. He's that iconic Daily News picture of the ladder company from South Brooklyn heading over the Brooklyn Bridge. And all the guys, all 6 of them on that engine, lost that day. And there's a silhouette. I can show you, give you prints of some of the stuff from my friend Paul's Facebook page. Petey's always the big-headed one. He had a giant freaking head. And that was the big joke. Like, his brother even said it at his eulogy that, you know, I don't think they have a halo big enough for his head. You know? But his funeral mass, that was the one thing that was devastating the firefighters. They show up. They're a brotherhood. I can be critical sometimes about Black Lives Matter and everything else, but cops, firemen, all those groups, because they depend on each other to live, they're a brotherhood, and they back each other up, and they take care of each other. And all my firefighter friends were just devastated because they were being strung out so thin to try and get to everybody's funeral and honor them the way they should be. So, Petey's was pretty well attended. Church was packed. Teresa and I stood against a back wall. Managed to get in there just to hear the eulogy and stuff. Mayor was there, the whole bit. And then we had a gathering afterwards at the KSC, and it was really good because it was fun to see some of the old buddies and make fun of each other the way we used to. But that he was like, you have to go to that one. So he was really very supportive of that. And which, you know him, it's not usually his nature.
Nope.
And then Vinnie Brunton was a local guy. He was a lieutenant. He was somebody who took the firefighter stuff seriously. He was in excellent shape. He ran 5 miles a day. He'd run Prospect Park. Very fit, Irish guy, red hair. Funny as hell. Sarcastic as hell. And he was lost. And I didn't go down for that one, but my friends tell me Prospect Park, like the entire avenue, was lined with people. They had flyovers for his funeral. It was crazy. But, it's just impacted everything, even up here. Like, I remember yelling at all the nursery school moms.
Mm-hmm.
Because shortly after that, we had a situation. You guys were both in preschool where, like, a local college kid was, like, shooting up the main street.
Oh, you didn't tell me that one.
I had asked the nursery school parents, like the board, which is all volunteer stuff. It's a cooperative. What are your lockdown procedures? What do you do if? And they were all looking at me like crazy. Like, dude, 9/11 was like a year ago, and these are our babies, and, you know, I know you like to think we live in lovely fuzzy New Paltz, but hi, a guy just shot up the street the other day.
Yeah.
We live near a college where you have kids that can be mentally unstable. You never know where it's coming from. And the reality was, in those days, the rumor was when they came for us next, they were coming for our children.
Oh, zoinks.
So I was terrified. And, you know, just forcing people to see the reality. But that's where I think I became a little cynical. For a very long time, I had an emergency, the big black giant laundry bag that we have. It was always in the utility room in the basement of the old house. It would be shoved under that shelving.
Yeah.
Because it was full of, I changed it seasonally, clothing, peanut butter, medications, stuff we need. It was a grab and go bag with $500 in cash.